Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. During our weekly episodes, we explore this intersection of spirituality and psychology, and as a result, capture timeless wisdom contained in both fields. Jussara Korngold and I today will talk about this, what I think it's such an important topic, faith. Not faith as seen under the lens of dogma, but as the universal force of resilience, the force of transformation, and actually the connection with the divine. So we're here to bring the teachings from Joanna the Angelis in this confluence, right, Jussara, of spiritism, philosophy, psychology, and we're here to highlight a point to me of understanding that faith is much more than a belief. It is that psychological and spiritual, and I'm going to use a Jungian word here, archetype embedded in the human soul. So, Jussara, how are you doing today?
Hello, Marcia. Hello, everyone. It's good to be back and to talk about such an amazing, I think, topic faith and spirituality and understanding the inner power that comes from having faith. And so I'm ready when you are.
All right. So let's go ahead and start with the basics, right? Let's start by defining the difference, perhaps, between faith and religion. Can you talk a little bit about it, Josada?
It's a very important point because sometimes, we may not quite understand what one means and
Hmm.
the other. We put everything together. So if I have faith, so to
Yeah.
say, it means that I have to have a religion, or if I have a religion, it means that I have to have a faith. And when we
Hmm.
talk about faith, even in terms of the what the spirit Joanna de Angelis tells us, and Jung also, because he explored all this possibility
Yes.
of the inner self and individuation, the path to individuation, all of that, we understand that it's more like a spiritual conviction. It's
Yes.
something that is like an inner trust that we have related to something that is transcendent. It can
Yes.
be God, it can be the soul, it can be the eternal truths. Even if we don't have material proof, there
Mhm.
is faith, and it represents more of a deep existential posture,
Mhm.
and comes spontaneously from the
Mhm.
human. And we will be talking later about this, how we can see that in some people and not necessarily in
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely subjective,
Yes.
personal, because your faith, and we are not talking about religion here, may be different than my faith,
Yes.
may be related or present in certain instances that I don't have. But the main characteristic of that faith is that we really have a belief without necessarily
A
seeing.
proof, right? Yeah.
Yes, and when we're talking about religion, we talk
Hmm.
more about a structure and collective system that organizes our
Hmm.
relationship with the divine, with God. So we will find doctrines, rituals, sacred texts,
Hmm.
community, moral codes, all
Yeah.
in one institutional frameworks. And then we will have the different religions, the different belief systems that we
Yeah.
have. And
Yeah.
what is amazing is that we, like we said at the beginning, we may find people that is very religious, but not necessarily will present that deep faith.
Yes.
They are more connected to the outward reflections or way of dealing with their daily lives than necessarily having this inner understanding and profound, deep spiritual strength that we will find in people that have really faith. So
Yeah.
religion, we can find it in many different expressions. Faith is going to transcend time,
Yes.
reincarnation. And there is a metaphor that it says the following, that the faith is the
Mm.
inner flame that lights the path.
Oh,
And
I
when
love it. I love it.
is
Yeah.
the lamp that
Yeah.
contains this inner flame. So
Yeah.
it goes like the lamp may be uh, rigid, opaque, and so it will not reflect or be able to let the flame that is the faith
Yeah.
go. And sometimes it is so rigid that may suffocate it. So when we talk about the rigidity that we can
Yeah.
find, certain strictness that we can find in certain religions,
Mm.
we will find how hard it is for people really to develop faith as
Yeah.
opposed to only belonging to a religion.
Yeah. And it's important. I'm restating what you just said, but just to make it clear because I'm regurgitating a little bit. But faith, as you mentioned, Jussara, is that inner conviction, right? So it is a trust that transcend proof. But really important here to differentiate because it's not blind either, right? It doesn't mean that is a blind faith, which leads to the realm of either dogma or even fanaticism, right? But I think it's important for us to understand that the expression of one's faith, given a certain structure or religion, may be not equal between me and you and 8 billion other people, right? Because it's while faith is universal, religion is temporal, right? It belongs to time, culture, and even traditions of a given era or given geography. But I wanted to ask you something else because you're just getting to it and reminded me that some people will say that uh, for some that expression of faith, right, that feelings of faith. And when I say that, I immediately just had to go to a beautiful sculpture by Bellini in Rome, the ecstasy of Santa Teresa, right? That ecstasy because you feel God so close to you, that feeling of faith for some is natural, right? We can even call it genetic. But can you perhaps explain that from a more spiritual perspective? Maybe we can bring a little bit of light into why some and not all.
Okay, since you mentioned faith as not being related to any blind faith or
Mhm.
dogmatism, I think it's important for us as well to mention that when we are again talking about faith, we are talking about some transcendental something, that
Yeah,
can represent an intuition, not necessarily deity, right, like God, but like we were saying before, faith in the soul, faith
yeah,
in yourself, faith in possibilities. Of course, we tend to only talk about faith when we are talking about religious
mm,
examples, and of course, in this case, as you know, sometimes people say, "Oh my God, how come this person has so much faith? It must
yeah,
dramatic." And I mean, we just say that without knowing their parents or their ancestors. We just go and
yeah,
say, must be genetic. And it's not, according to Joanna the Angelis, more like a transpersonal memory because
Mhm.
here we are talking about, the
Mhm.
piling up of experiences, knowledge acquired in different existences. We are
Yeah.
talking about reincarnation. So we will see that in the life of saints, how from
Mhm.
early age they show such a devotion, such an inclination towards. Jesus or the scriptures or
Mhm.
whatever, any other religious book or
Yeah.
faith,
Yeah.
that definitely comes from other incarnation, to the point that sometimes the family is uh, related or is have as faith a certain religion, and the
Mhm.
child is going to look for a different one. So
Yeah.
it is not something necessarily that we inherit. We may inherit the habit of, going to the temple, going to the church,
Yeah.
and learning the scriptures, but the thing is, it is
Mhm.
related to the maturity of the spirit. So
Yeah.
it's something that the spirit is going to be carrying away, carrying with it towards other incarnations, in relation to moral, emotional, uh,
Mhm.
intuitive lessons, and it's going to grow from that each time more. So
Mhm.
this is why sometimes we see people that have this connection, and
Mhm.
also mentioning, you know this in relation to other occupations that may not
Mhm.
necessarily just be related to a religious aspect of life, but it can
Mhm.
be related to other aspects of life, like, architecture.
Yeah.
You say,
Yeah.
I dreamt about a building, I see the building here, and people will tell you it's impossible. I imagine that, like here in New York City, I'm thinking about, the pioneer that decided to do the
Yeah.
Brooklyn Bridge. And I
Yes.
remember the one, the Eiffel, the Eiffel Tower, well, that as well. I mean, they would tell these people constantly, it is impossible. Engineering cannot go to such extremes. It is
Yeah.
impossible to have a roof that is heavier than the columns, or, things
Yeah.
like that. I'm not an architect, uh, but
Oh, you're talking to me, right?
yeah.
It's you're getting those examples, and you're getting
Really.
really deep. Yeah, I do have an architecture degree, and I'm not an architect, but you're right there, right, with Florence and the cathedral, with the cupola that said no, it can't do it, or the Pantheon in Rome, or the Eiffel Tower, as you said. It's just interesting
And the
feats of
paintings, it's
imagination.
the
Yeah,
shadow, I
yeah,
can only imagine when Michelangelo, when
yeah.
someone had the idea, oh, let's paint on the roof. Okay.
And
Today, we,
the roof is not straight. It's to the side, and it's like, how did you do this?
with the lack of technology that we
Yes,
had in the
yes, yeah,
1600s
yeah,
and 1500s, right?
yes, yeah,
And I was going to say 16th century, and
yeah,
and then, people would say it is absolutely impossible until it's
yeah,
done. And
yeah,
how
absolutely.
and why it is done, because those people had faith in themselves.
Yeah, I just wanted and it's not in faith, but it's an example that comes to my mind from a feat of architecture. You may not know him, but Frangieri, who is known for their exquisite works of architecture that is really just a sculpture. It's very amazing. There's not a single straight line in his buildings. So very interesting in a field that so many people, I'm talking about the construction, the materialization of a dream, right? And usually it will come late and super over budget, etc. And I just read the other day that Frank Gehry's 100% of all his buildings, crazy as it is, none of them came late or over budget. So not faith, it's the work of doing something really well. But when we talk about I even you're saying New York, just out of the Empire State, right? Just to get the sheer height at that time for that building, it is incredible, and it takes that vision, faith as a vision in something like that, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. So I
yeah,
think it's important for us to expand our
yeah,
idea, and then people
yeah,
say, "Oh, you're talking about a synonym of believing." Yes, it
yeah,
is believing, but
yes,
believing without seeing, without
yeah,
necessarily seeing, because all these innovations that the innovations that we have, it was
yeah,
because someone
yeah,
believed that enough to
yeah,
make those things concrete to
yeah,
us. All the inventions that we may talk about. So it is really fascinating. And I think it's very important, and as a lesson to us, since we are talking, always trying to bring that to us, to ourselves, to how am I
yeah,
going to apply this to my daily lives, in the sense of,
yeah,
believe in yourself, have
yeah,
faith in yourself. Sometimes it's because uh, we have a whim that I want to pursue a certain career, a certain
yeah,
area, and you do not have the talent for that. But it
yeah,
doesn't mean that you don't have a talent. You just have to focus on it and look for in your inner self, what's your talent.
yeah.
And there are so many.
Yeah, and I love that you reference back my favorite parable of all times, right? The parable of the talents, right? But Jussara, in one of her books, Joanna talks about the idea that human beings, in essence, is a religious animal, right?
Mhm.
And so it's in what you're talking about, that almost genetic essence of the person is expressing its own faith in what however shape or form. And when we talk that faith, we're talking about that deep connection with the divine, with the sacred. And I just wanted to maybe share a little bit about Jung, and Joanna references how Jung references that as the psychoid archetype. But many people look at that thinking, psychoid, what do we mean? Right? Is this something pathologic that you're bringing here? And what he means is really is the archetype of the self as a manifestation of that inner spiritual drive. And I love it because what the spiritist connection with that is how it really resonates what in the spirit's book, question 621, we understand that the divine law, right, the laws of God are inscribed in our soul. So if it goes back to Jung and faith, right, the psychoid archetype, as he calls it, the psychoid archetype of God is like, and I think you referenced already with Joanna de Angelis, that spiritual memory of our eternal, this is beautiful, eternal relationship with the Creator, right? And it goes across many different incarnations. So I really appreciate you bringing that up for us as well. But if we continue, we have a few more minutes together. I was wondering if we can go back into memory lane, right? Into history. Can you comment perhaps on how, and we're talking about 3 centuries ago, right? How the rationality that took over the those scientists, we're talking about the innovators of the 17th century, how they paved the way for what at the time was a confrontation between those rational science and those dominant religious doctrines at the time, right? And if you keep thinking in terms of what happened at the time, it kept increasing, right? Rationalism and rational thoughts really kept growing into the moment that it reached its peak at the end of 19th century and even the beginning of the first half of the 20th century. And we start to see, collectively speaking, all of us distancing ourselves from God. And I think the famous Nietzsche's quote, right, that God is dead, or even like him, some other nihilistic or super materialistic view of the world. Can we perhaps talk a little bit about what was going on in the world, and maybe what's going on today, 21st century?
Since you mentioned Jung, I think it's very important also um, to say uh, how important was his presence among us, and
Mhm.
how, in a good way, revolutionary his teachings and his experiences and his deductions were for the time. Because, as you said, we were living in a time starting in the 17th century where there was a rise in rationalism.
Yeah.
So he was considered, as Joanna de Angelis mentioned, was one of the first academics to not worship absolute rationalism in relation to the universe. He had a much open mind
Mm-hmm.
in relation to all that. And even when we mentioned the quote from Nietzsche,
Yeah.
we have to mention it well,
Yes.
because he didn't say God is dead. He
Yeah.
said God is dead as an assumption, considering what as more like a diagnosis of a cultural condition,
Yeah.
looking around the way that the world was increasingly ruled by reason, secularism.
Yeah.
The tradition religion had lost its moral authority. So he was stating a fact. God is
Yeah.
that. He was
Yeah.
stating a fact. He was not saying about, he was not talking about his personal conviction, and not even trying to tell people that God is that. No, he was stating a fact of the situation. And
And quite important, sorry to interrupt you, but it is really interesting, as you said, right? The obsolescence of a current paradigm, which was how religion was absorbed and a part of everybody's everyday life. But at that point, that the juncture point of Nietzsche's quote, right? It was like, no, it's crumbling as it is, as an institution. That paradigm is no longer the current paradigm, so it is dead.
yeah.
Let's create a new one, or it is being created, a new one, right?
Yeah, and this basically started, or really reached a high point during the um, French Revolution,
Yeah.
especially when there was a time where people made a festival of reason inside the cathedral, Notre Dame de Paris,
Mhm.
and replace it, remove it, the cross and all the things related to God from the altar, and put it in its place a statue of a woman that represented reason at that time. So this was really something that was huge, and it
Yeah.
started, and from there on there
Yeah.
is to have like a kind of war between faith in religious terms and religion and science, thinking
Yeah.
that one would oppose to the other. So
Yeah.
it's just in the middle of the 20th century, and I think more now in the 21st century, that we are trying to catch up. And of course, it started with minds like Jung and
Mhm.
others that came later, and it started showing that, okay, I'm going to venture myself into this path of science and reason and technology. But
Yeah.
then comes the questions. You know, how exactly do this work? And and primal matter came from where?
Yeah.
And the brain, how comes, you put a mass together that for to us from the outside means nothing, and it represents everything in terms of our human interaction in the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
and, and moving my muscles and cardiac frequencies and all of that. And so, like Joanna de Angelis clearly expressed, with knowledge
Yeah.
came the big questions. And I think Spiritism came to a right time where people were eager to know, from where did I come from? What
Yeah.
am I doing here? And what happens next? And in
Yeah.
relation to everything, not only your human aspect. So Joanna de Angelis says that those moments represents a kind of spiritual amnesia, where we completely forget about anything related to spirit, and we just go into materialism, rationalism, and probabilities, and all those things that can be proven and attested to us that they do exist.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's very interesting, right? And um, if we perhaps it, bridge into a similar but not the same question, which is, if you think about rationalism, but there is also a existentialist philosophical boom at the time, right? And with that um, um, we come to see the idea, people at the time, that insisted on the concept that to see is to believe, right?
Mhm.
Um, and if you think about it, Jussara, this concept now is maybe outdated, right? Especially if we talk about quantum physics, which is we need to believe first in order to see it later. Can we maybe get into that a little bit longer? Because I think it's fascinating what's happening historically speaking. We have all of this. Rationalism and existentialism, etc., and leads to where we are today. But can we talk a little bit about how quantum physics is also bringing a different aspect to that concept?
Sure, but we have to travel back a little bit.
Okay.
1,000 years ago,
Yes.
when Thomas, the
Yes. Yes. Doubting Thomas. Yes.
doubting
Yeah.
Thomas, he
Yeah.
said, I don't believe if I don't see it. And to
Yeah.
him was not enough just to see. He
Yeah.
had to touch the wounds of Jesus to believe. And
Yeah.
so we may say that the precursor
Yeah. Yeah.
history that we have to that, which let's say, let's be fair with him. Of course, we all would like to see certain things to understand or to believe more.
Yeah.
Not every time, but quite often when I have to use the microwaves at home,
Yeah.
I, I just think about this. I just say, I put it in this little box, something that I want to warm, or my popcorn, and 1 minute, 2 minutes, it's going to happen. It's like magic.
you put it in this little box, you don't see anything,
Mhm.
right? You don't see anything, and then it happens. It comes, there, the corn, it's a popcorn, and the food is warm, and all of those things. But there is also the historical context during this time of, this era of, spiritual amnesia, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Being rational was infection, where we have those thinkers, philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert
yeah,
Camus, and others that would come with that epistemology saying, if something cannot be seen, measured, or proven empirically, it is not real.
yeah,
So we go with that because it's very simplistic way of going about in life. But then quantum mechanics came and changed it completely. This way of viewing things with theories and observations that when you know that is going to happen, but not necessarily you can see things directly. You just can't are able to infer them mathematically or probabilistically, but not necessarily seeing, like,
mhm,
like me in the microwave. I don't see,
yeah,
but something happens, and I know that there is something behind that. And so there is
yes,
this uncertainties theory, like the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle or the Schrodinger's cat, because there is only probability. Is the cat going to be alive or dead? You cannot say.
yeah,
It's just a certain implication now, is that belief precedes perception. But
yeah,
now we will see a different perspective on that,
yeah,
where quantum physics show to us that we have a different way that belief or conceptual acceptance often
yes,
precedes empirical verification. So faith is not irrational. It aligns with those deeper truths that science is only the beginning to the approach. And then it brings them together, because now we are much more free to explore things without
mhm,
being afraid of being called non-scientific,
yeah,
or weird people that just believe without uh, having this empirical verification. And
yeah,
there is one thing that a logical principle that they say, it only takes one counterexample to
yeah,
falsify an universal claim. You see, you
yeah,
have an universal claim, and all of a sudden there is just one thing that comes and say, like, an apple that falls. Oh, we have a law of gravity, right?
yes,
All of a sudden.
yes, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
No, I love it. I love where we're talking about this growth, and it's important for us to remember, all of us, that in those 300 years, we're talking about 17th century, not 17th century, but the 18th century, 19th century, and 20th century. There's so much growth. Humanity just, if we're referencing quantum physics, like, did a quantum leap in moving away from what humanity was into what the humanity is and becoming, right? The new plateau that we're reaching as we speak. And we have to see the difficulty of those scientists of the time, because they really, in a word that may be too dramatic here, Jussara, but they revolutionized the paradigms of the time. right? We're talking about all the incredible, for 1,000 plus years, the incredible power of a church. We're talking about now Christianity, Western society, right? But the incredible power and pull that led to many what we could call atrocities. We're talking about the Crusades, we talk about the Inquisition, and many other extravagances of that structure of one's faith, right? And so, as the scientists are slowly chiseling away all that what was this monolithic belief system of the time, they could not go back. They had to be very evidence based. I have to, like Thomas, doubting Thomas, I have to touch it to believe. Therefore, the entire relationship with the divine became at risk, right? And I'm really interested um, to think about what's next. What's next? But
And
before, do you want to say something else? Yeah,
yeah, and the thing sometimes with science is that you have to be evidence based,
yeah,
but to what point? I remember once I was in a spiritualist congress on mediumship, and
yeah,
so a presenter where we're talking about some experiments. People, researchers were conducting in relation to a, a spirit that they call the blue dame, white dame. I don't remember quite well.
mhm,
That
mhm,
is in California. There is this a certain place that this spirit normally appears, and
mhm.
so scientists go there. That those that also study parapsychology goes there, and they go and attest that the spirit is there. Then, a few years later, they go again and attest the spirit is there. Years later, they go. They've been doing that for 100 years.
Uh,
And I say, when enough is enough for them to say, yes, really, there is a spirit there. There is a spirit that communicates, and tell everyone. So they don't do that. It comes to the point that Thomas has to say,
yeah,
okay, I touched and saw you once, but until I started, I touch you and see you 100
mhm,
times, I will not be convinced. And so
yeah,
there is this difficulty that we have of, you know, having to let new paradigms be introduced
yes,
in our lives. And
yeah,
when we think about those scientists, like you were mentioning, Louis Pasteur,
yeah,
he
yeah,
was ridiculed because he was looking for something that could not be seen.
yeah,
He would
yeah,
say there are microorganisms,
yeah,
and they play a huge role in our lives. But no, and Thomas Edison and Marie Curie and
yes, yeah,
Galileo that almost went to burn at stake, and even Einstein. And at the same time, when we think about faiths like the ones of when Victor Franco
yeah,
attached that what preserved his soul was not food or shelter, but this belief in
yeah,
himself, and
yeah,
there is an essence in terms of living. There is a purpose of
yeah,
life. And then you can go on even
yeah,
when obstacles seems unsurmountable. And this is faith,
yeah.
and it's like daring. You have to be a daredevil.
Yes, yes, but you
And
you speak of Viktor Frankl, and in his, the book that is most accessible, it's so interesting when, or heartbreaking when you think about those individuals that they believed. I don't know if you remember this part of the book, right? They believed that the end of war was going to be December before it ended, right? The December, the Christmas before, and there was a spring in their steps. There's this I can hold on in this terrible life in Auschwitz, and then it didn't. And at that point, their faith in that life with a meaning, with a purpose, just disintegrated. And those that kept on with their faith, they waited. They were able to survive the horrors of what they're going through until the end, a few months later. So I always, that passage in his book always touches me profoundly because it's so close. And some of us, if we think about it in our lives, right, Jussara, independent of extreme chaos or disasters or anything, but we may be going through a very difficult, challenging time. And having faith is we are going to survive it. We are strong enough. We are going to overcome, and continue to have faith is critical, despite of what are the challenges, the size of challenges that are coming at us. It can be a disease, it can be a loss of someone, it can be, I don't know, there's so many different things that can come to us, and it's important that we believe and that we keep our faith that we'll be okay.
And
But
this,
just go ahead.
and you see, it's this positive thinking, it's this faith, inner
Mhm.
faith that keeps you going. That is not necessarily a byproduct of any kind of miracle.
Yeah,
Course, we know, and when we know in terms of people that have been diagnosed with a terminal disease, and sometimes you have two people, the same thing, the same
yeah,
diagnosis. One has faith, the other has not. One dies in two days, the other one lasts two more years. Why?
yeah,
If
yeah,
chemically speaking, biologically speaking, it was absolutely the same.
yeah,
And so we may not know why. And as in this example that you said, they they gather within themselves
yeah,
the power to survive if it was up to a deadline that
yeah,
they imagined themselves,
yeah,
not after that. So it was clear to them that they had the power, they could continue, but because it seemed to them that it was not accomplished in the date that they were expecting, they just lost control of themselves in this kind
yes,
of state. So
yeah,
it's something that we have to think about. And I know it's very hard. Many of course, most of you that are hearing us now may not know that I have been this year. I have been through a lot of struggle and had to go through, nothing new, things that people have to go sometimes, when you get to a certain age, and spine surgery, and the recovery has been very hard. It's
yeah,
been 2 months since the surgery, and I'm still not able to walk. And there are times that I think I'm not going to walk again, and immediately I come in. I have to listen to a podcast like this where you guys are listening now. Have faith and believe that there is no reason why it's just taking time. It
yeah,
is a process. It is
yeah,
taking longer. Talk more to yourselves. Have this belief and this positivity, and continue in this struggle, because like Jesus said, it only if we have faith as a
yeah,
small as a mustard seed,
yes,
nothing will be impossible to us. And so we are there are so many things that we do not understand, that we do not
yeah,
see, and things that are working in our favor. And now, spiritually speaking, we are discovering a whole new world of possibilities, of me doing out of body experiences, of communication with spirits, of spirits living and having their activities, all of those things. And
yeah,
me returning again in a new body. Of course, my spine will be better that time.
yeah,
time. And but this is it. We cannot lose faith. We cannot lose faith in ourselves because
Yeah,
you know, in my case particularly, if I lose faith, I'm not going to be working properly well the way I have to do, you know, go through the path
yeah,
where there is necessary physiotherapy and all of those things, the exercises and certain foods and medicine that will help me improve overall. If I don't feel like things are working, I'm going to give up all of that. And of course,
yeah.
they are not going to work. And then you will say, see how it didn't work? It didn't work because you didn't do your part.
Yes,
Help
yes.
yourself, and heavens will help you. So
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
have in mind now.
Yeah, but you mentioned, right? So it's Matthew passage, which is beautiful. If you, where Jesus says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. So, Josada, nothing is impossible for you, and for all of us here, nothing is impossible for us. And of course, Jesus was not talking about moving geological formations, right? It's important for all of us to remember that when he speaks of the mountains, he's really talking about all of our inner obstacles, our inner struggles, our fears, our limitations, old pattern, even spine surgery, right? They all seem incredibly stuck and unmovable, but we with faith, right? I love the visual. The mustard seed is about this big, right? But as small as it is, it's all it is required because it will work the same way when nurtured. That little faith, small as a mustard seed, will transform our inner life, our difficulties, our challenges, our external circumstances, and we just need to understand the power of faith. And I'd say, if we're going back right to what we discussed today, I love it because we went from enlightenment, rationalism, to spiritism, to Christianity, from quantum physics to those teachings of Jesus. We can say faith isn't just a feeling, it is indeed a transformative force. Jusara, before we go, do you have any thoughts that you want to leave everybody with?
Yeah, again, just I think to uh, finalize this, faith, it is the conquest of the spirit through our evolutionary journey. It is something that we will have to do to go through our process of individuation. And religion may come and go, but the
Yeah,
inner certainty born of experience is always going to remain. So let's think about it. Let's, you know, um, have faith, put fear aside there.
yeah, yeah.
Create this new world, because if we are imagining, it is possible to happen.
I,
Let us imagine good things
yeah.
and good things, good thoughts to the world, and and then we will see how far this faith can go and change everything in
Oh,
our surroundings.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jusara. Thank you, everyone. Right. Let us keep our faith. And I hope this episode may inspire you as much as it's inspired me to really cultivate our faith, and that faith that is not only comforting but also creative. Remember all the examples of those innovators, scientists, architects, artists, right? But also think in terms of also transformative and alive in our daily inner world. And for all of you, if this is the first time that you're listening to a program, please note the programs Psychology and Spirituality are weekly episodes are there, but they're also based on the works by Joanna de Angelis. We hope that we're able to take some nuggets from our conversation to perhaps expand your own concepts of spirituality and psychology. I wanted to thank you, Jussara. I want to thank all of you who are here with us today. But most important, I want to thank all of our sponsors, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AME Brazil, the Brazilian arm of the Medical Spiritist Association. Thank you so much, Jussara. Thank you, everyone, and see you next time.